Okay, let's be honest, most of us ride our bikes because we like to ride them fast, whether it's motivated by results, trying to beat your mates on a Sunday club run, or simply because you like to gloat when you post it online. We all want to go faster, but how do we make ourselves faster? Well, here are my top 5 tips on how to improve your average speed on the bike. Right, if you've watched any of my previous videos today, then you've probably already guessed my first tip today. That's right, it is aerodynamics, one of my favourite topics, and it's not a total surprise either because aerodynamics plays such a big part in maintaining our speed and reducing our drag on the bike. Now, some bikes and some wheels obviously have different aerodynamic properties, and you're probably right now hoping that I'm about to justify the need for you to buy a new bike. But I'm afraid there are actually other ways of improving our aerodynamics before we actually go as far as changing our bike. So for starters, our body, us as riders, we actually take up a much bigger proportion of that drag than the bike itself. It's actually around 4/5. So what we want to do is actually look at our position on the bike. So if you're doing triathlon, then you're probably already using aero bars. So when we're on our aero bars, we want to reduce our frontal area, and that means sort of bringing our shoulders in, tucking our elbows in, and also trying to look at dropping our head down so we're nice and aero. And then we have our clothing. On one end of the scale, a baggy rain jacket is certainly going to cause more drag than a well-fitted top, but equally, an aerodynamic helmet is going to still have some aero savings in comparison to a standard road helmet. Now, that's not to say you need to go and wear an aero helmet on all of your club rides with your mates, but if you really want that KOM, it might be worth a shot. Okay, my next tip is to fuel on the go. Now, this may sound quite obvious to some of you, but you'd be surprised just how many people like to stop and have a 3-course meal mid-ride. Now, if you are one of those people, then it's probably time to rethink your fueling strategy. See, every time you stop to take fuel on, you're losing momentum, you're allowing your muscles to cool and stiffen up, and actually you'll be surprised just how much time you are losing each time you stop. Instead, you want to keep the ride moving, keep that momentum going, and if you do need to ease off, then you can just do that rolling along. So instead of those hard to eat, tricky snacks, you want to opt for something a little bit more basic and simple, so some energy bars or some energy gels. Now, these can slip in and out of your jersey and tri-suit pockets nice and easily. And on race day, a really good option for when you're pushing the pace because they can be digested really easily. And another nice thing about these new modern triathlon bikes is a lot of them have this integrated storage. So you can have those gels, those bars on hand, nice and easily accessible right in front of you on the top tube here. Or you can, of course, just add your own little bento box. But one of the biggest aero savings when it comes to fueling and hydration is an aero drinks bottle between the aero bars, ideally with a straw. So what that allows is that you can stay in your aero bars, reach for the straw, take hydration on without ever breaking from your aero position. Now, pacing is another really important factor when we want to try and improve our average speed on the bike. You almost want to think of your body like an engine. You've got a certain amount of fuel in that engine, and if you keep revving that engine, you're just going to burn through that fuel quickly. So in triathlon, we want to limit how many times we sprint and surge, particularly on the climbs. Yet, so often, I do see a lot of triathletes sprinting up every hill, only to get to the top, having to sit up and recover. Instead, we want to try and cap how hard we go on those climbs. So I normally suggest something around 5 to 10% above your target race power. That way you should get to the top of the climbs feeling strong and like you can get straight back into the aero bars and start laying the power down. And then another way to improve our pacing and improve our average speed on the bike is to try and go harder in the second half of the ride. This is what we call negative splitting. even if it doesn't actually happen, at least try to do it. So the idea here is that we try and build into the ride so the second half is a lot faster. And this is important because in a race, we tend to feel quite fresh and it feels quite easy at the start of the ride, and we tend to go a little bit too hard. So this is where heart rate and power becomes a really valuable tool. Monitor your power and then build it through to the second half of the ride, which is obviously very important for us as triathletes, given that we have to run off the bike. Okay, well, my next tip is also an opportunity to nag, because it's important to keep our bikes clean and in good working order. So if your bike is filthy and poorly working, then it's not going to be fast, or at least as fast as it could be. And that is my excuse today. Now, if your chain and cassette are all clogged up with dirt, then it's not only going to affect your shifting, it's also going to affect that transmission of power. So you need to make sure you keep on top of cleaning it and keeping it well lubricated. And when you are maintaining that, it's also a really good opportunity to check over your tires, because these are very important for a couple of reasons. One, prevents us from getting punctures. So if they are looking worn out or past their best, then it's possibly worth replacing them, because if you do get a puncture, that is going to dramatically decrease your average speed when you're out on a ride. But they also play a very big part, and that is our rolling resistance. Now, there is a lot of new science and studies going into our tires and rolling resistance, but the current train of thought is that having more supple tires that deform and flex with the road slightly better have a lower rolling resistance. So with that, that has brought about this slightly wider, lower pressure. So the most popular tires these days are around 25 mil, and rather than pumping them right up to 100 to 110 psi, we're now looking at around the 90 psi region. Well, finally, if you really want to make yourself faster and improve your average speed on the bike, then I'm afraid to say you're going to have to invest some energy to make yourself faster. That's not to say all the previous points won't help, they certainly will, but you need to train that engine to make yourself faster. This doesn't necessarily require a huge investment of time though, because you can actually do some quite short, high intensity intervals, some FTP intervals to really boost that performance, rather than just aimlessly heading out and riding your bike. So a good session example is 5 by 4 minutes at FTP with 6 minutes recovery between each of the reps. And that will really help to improve your threshold power and your overall pace on a ride. Well, I didn't say it was going to be easy, but at the end of the day, part of the fun of riding our bikes is to ride it fast. And if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more videos from GTN, just click on the globe and subscribe. And if you'd like to see our 7 aero hacks video, just click down here. And if you'd like to see what is sweet spot training and how to do it, then just click down here.